Hello and welcome to episode number 190 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast. We are recording on January the 8th, 2023. My name is Eric, host of the show, based in Southern Ontario, hunter, target shooter, ham radio operator, computer geek, and as a first responder, witnessed an over-reliance on emergency services and started a small preparedness company to help people get better prepared for at least 72 hours, if not longer.
I'm Alan. I'm a safety trainer, first responder, security expert, and overall safety nerd.
And I'm Jeff. I am based in Central Ontario. I'm a target shooter, ham radio operator, general overall handyman, and weather nerd.
My name's Bear. I'm a tactical beard owner, base t-shirt merchant, and a government critique.
But that's tomorrow night, right?
Yes.
And I'm Brad. I'm in Eastern Ontario. Consider myself a part-time amateur prepper who's always trying to better himself. And if you want to help support the show and keep the Canadian Prepper Podcast on the air, you can buy some swag. We have both the Canadian Prepper Podcast t-shirt and the tactical Velcro patch at www.prepperpodcast.ca. All proceeds help keep the lights on and the backup generator fueled.
And if you are enjoying the show, please take a few minutes and like us on Facebook, submit a review on iTunes. Also, we want your feedback, good or bad, or even if just a topic you want us to cover. You can email us at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca.
All right, so we've got some testing content for you in this episode. We're going to start out with some recent news. We'll update you on our personal prep since the last episode. And then we're going to get into the main topic, the 24-hour prep test. Oh, we move into the news.
I was going to talk about a story, but then Jeff jumped on.
Well, you snooze, you
Everything
lose,
is
buddy.
the worst, and I'm not going to talk about the news.
Jeff just likes to steal stuff. We get it.
Yeah, exactly. So the story that I've got that Alan is complaining about is obviously, I think most people have heard about it, the football player from the Buffalo Bills that collapsed on the field last Monday night. The whole reason I'm just bringing it up is he was revived by CPR and an AED. I've had some chats with people. They've said, oh, well, you know, all those football and those sports teams, they've got all these doctors and they've got all this and that. Doesn't matter. The doctor's doing the same thing you could do, which is give somebody CPR, find an AED. They're becoming more and more popular. A lot of public places have them, like arenas and that kind of stuff, where those kind of injuries and stuff like that possibly could happen. So my point of the story was you have no excuse. CPR is not difficult. Go out and get yourself certified if you're not.
Isn't it also law for certain buildings, public safety places, or whatever to have AED on sites? I know it is here. I don't know about, like, obviously this probably happened in the States, but like out in Ontario, isn't it law that pretty much every major store and like public service building has an AED in it as well?
Law, not necessarily, but it's best practice for sure. And
Okay, I thought it was law.
No, it's just pretty common now. It's a really good idea, and it will become law in a very short period of time, like in the next 3 to 4 years, that every workplace will have to have one over a certain capacity of people.
And I know there's an app. I don't know if it's on everything or not, but I know I had an app on my phone that was AED Plus, I think it's called.
Pulse Point AED.
Is that what it is?
That's the one I use.
Well, it finds an AED anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever they're...
Does it track you?
No.
Well, it
Well, I don't
works
know
on
about
Google
that.
Maps, and it's
Yeah, no.
it's user-generated data, right? So somebody will say, "Oh, hey, there's an AED in this building," and it'll tell you where in the building it is. And if you need
yes, it
an
tracks.
AED, you open. So yes, I mean, because it's Google Maps, it tracks you. So you open that, and you'll be able to say, "Oh, hey, there's an AED in that store over there. Go get one. Go get it."
Okay. Well, it's not bad.
Yeah, maybe a good thing to study ahead of time to kind of know where they are in your area in case you ever find yourself needing one.
We play that game I play that game with my kids every time we go to a
Nice.
hockey rink. Is where's the AED?
Nice.
Because it's one thing to be able to say, go find the AED. It's in the building. It's quite another to say, go to the front door, look on the wall to the left, find the white cabinet, and get the AED out of it.
Yep.
And for them to actually understand what an AED is.
That too.
Right? Like that's a whole other ball game for kids.
So when my kids
scenario,
I was
where
part of a
there's mass panic.
fundraiser many years ago. Well, not that many years ago, but 6 or 7 years ago, anyways, where the local school board, we asked, like we as a group of parents asked the local school board put an AD in all of the elementary schools. So there was one in every high school, but for this exact scenario, there'd been a couple of incidents, in the past, in the 5 years prior, and the school board had said, yes, we'll do that, but it's going to take 10 years, and we're going to have to make other cuts to do this. We discovered that the cost was going to be about $50,000, so we got together and said, well, we can fundraise that. That's not a big deal, and we did. Nice. And part of that fundraising was, Zoll was the authorized provider for it, so we knew we were buying Zoll units, and so we had the Zoll rep come out, and we did a couple of literally just like a stand in the parking lot outside of Plaza, and talk about it. We put up some signs and got the CPR mannequins out, but my kids were, I want to say 6 and 8 at the time, 5 and 7 at the time. I gave them the unit and said, here, figure out how to work this. And in 3 minutes, they had it figured out and applied properly, right? Like the machine literally talks to you. It tells you what to do.
Yeah, it tells you where to put the patches. Like, they're awesome.
It is ridiculously simple to use. Like, it's so simple, even a cop can do it. And it's and it's there's no reason not to. Like the last few that I sold through my company, they're about $1,200, $1,500 a piece. For any business out there, if you've got any kind of risk, just spend the money. Yeah, and that's on a 5-year service plan. No, that's not a 5-year service plan, right? Like we'll maintain the batteries and the pads for 5 years, and if you use it, we'll send you a temporary replacement. You send us that one back. We download the telemetry, replace the pads, replace the battery, and then send you back your original unit. Like they're so cheap now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're nowhere near what they used to cost.
Yeah. Nowhere. There's no reason not to have one, especially if you've got more than, say, 10 people. There's a good chance you're going to need it.
Yep.
I didn't realize they were that cheap now.
Yeah. Yep. Come down significantly.
What were they when they came out? They were what, like $6,000, $7,000?
Well, when they came out, they were like, the first one that I ever used was almost $25,000, and it required medical direction to be able to do it. So in 25 years, we've gone from medical direction prohibitively expensive to accessible everywhere, and like people spend more on a good rifle than on an AD.
Yeah, valid.
I know. 15 years ago when I worked at the Red Cross in Ottawa, they were pricing them out for a couple of arenas, and they were about $7,000 to $9,000 depending on what brand and what options and whatever you wanted. And I didn't realize they were down that far in price, so that's acceptable to me. I could go get one.
Yep.
Wow. Awesome. Not good info to know.
They're great to have all the time.
Great to have, easy to use.
Like my construction site has 2.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. They're better to be close by than not, right?
Yeah, my last workplace. Right? My last workplace was 4 floors. The building was 4 floors, and they had one in the basement. They had 2 on the main floor. They had 1 on the second floor, and they had 2 more on the 4th floor.
It's all about accessibility, right? Seconds count.
It's good to know.
All right. Yeah. So my second kind of news article was, it hasn't really hit the news that much, but again, there was another attack on a power plant. This one was out in outside of Las Vegas. Individual out there drove his car into a kind of solar sort of power plant area and set it on fire and did significant damage. If there's any good part to it, the area that he damaged was was presently offline for service work, so it didn't cause an outage, but they're saying there's significant damage, and it could take up to 2 years for them to be able to source the parts and get everything swapped in and out and changed. And so, like I said, it really isn't hitting the media. And I kind of think on one side of that, they want to stop the copycats. They don't want these people who are out there wanting their 5 minutes of fame and getting their name on the news and getting their picture on the news and getting their 5 minutes of fame. So, but it's still out there, and it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, it's happening a lot more recently.
Just take a tour bus and drive up on Parliament. That'll get you on the news.
No, it needs to be a truck.
Oh, before we get kicked off of YouTube, should we move into what we've done lately in preps?
I cleaned up, partially cleaned up a big tree in my backyard. It fell down in that recent ice storm, if you will. That happened almost 25 years to the day, I guess, of the original one in '98.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
More cleaning in my basement. Some fuel rotation tonight. I have a week off coming up soon to dedicate more time to finishing my renos and whatnot in the basement, and regular stuff here. That's it.
Nice.
Who's making an espresso at 9:30 at night, 9:15?
That would be me, not me, but that would be somebody in my house who's doing that. I thought he'd be finished by the time I had to get on there, and I muted, but it just didn't work.
I actually had a tree come down in my backyard during the I guess if you want to call it the blizzard. We didn't get it that bad, but it was a close call. It was about it landed about 15 feet from the house. I haven't cleaned it up yet. I'll get to that in the spring. It's kind of out of the way, but yeah, it's just something to be aware of around your property. I just did some fuel rotation and some food prep this week.
Nice. Yeah, for me, a whole lot of nothing. It was a busy week work-wise, and yeah, I didn't do a whole lot prep-wise, so it happens from time to time.
You can make up for it next
Yeah,
week.
we can't all be
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Well,
you can be,
I topped up
depending on
my
the
fuel
week.
cans this week. Topped up all my fuel cans. Figured out that either my fuel cans are out or the pump that the pumps at the local station I go to are out, because I had 3 25-liter cans and a 10-liter can, which should equal 85 liters unless math has changed on me. And I was not able to put more than 81 liters into those 4 containers. So somebody's units of measurement are off a little bit. Which, for me doesn't matter, but over
I was going to say it's a win. It's a win for you. If it's supposed to be 85 and it's only 80, you're only paying for 80, and you got a full tank. So it's a win.
Yeah.
And I apologize, guys. I can't hear anything that anybody's saying. Everything is frozen on me. And if you can hear me, have yourselves a great evening. And I will try and get on next week when the weather's a little better and or my fiber lines are finally connected. But everybody's frozen. So good night.
Yeah, well, we can hear you just fine, but I'm assuming you cannot hear us. So the joys of not having good internet.
You gotta hit the explicit button. No, awesome.
I can edit that out for the audio version, no problem. Those of you watching live, though, hey, it is what it is. It's a live show. You never know what's going to happen.
Oh wow!
So Alan just rage quit.
Just for this week.
Oh, that was fantastic. All right, Pierre, you got some preps?
Oh yes. So food rotation, food prep, always a thing. Practice some new stuff with the new welder at the shop, and realize I did everything ass backwards because I'm left-handed. Or at least that's what everybody's telling me. Got to walk some property we're looking into. Lots of really nice, good-looking deer tracks on it.
Ooh,
not too far from Brad's. Yeah, and then we went to a place that we've been considering for putting a house on it if all goes well and everything lines up. discussing the house we initially want is like crazy expensive. But then we looked at different options and said, I'm like, well, this is what we like about this place. They said they had the plans and they were like, well, we can do this, 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 and the price hasn't changed, and you pretty much get that just like less square footage. So, now we've been walking around just being like, ooh, this is nice. So we'll see how that happens. Obviously, time will tell once we get some math figured out and all that, and hopefully nobody swoops up the property. But nice, good chunk of land, easy access. Thankfully, no big trees around where we're planning to put the house on that property. So I'm like, sweet, we don't have to worry too much about doing this build and then like 3 weeks later something falling on it. So yeah, kind of already scoped out how far I can get on the range in the backyard if all goes well. So
Nice.
it'll be good.
Very nice. Yeah, it looks like a nice piece of property that you've been showing us. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it works out for you.
Yeah.
Because that would be an epic piece of property.
Oh yeah, it looks even better with like in person.
I'm sure it does.
Should we follow what Dan says there in the chat that somebody texted?
I already did.
Yeah, we did.
I told him his rage quit was epic.
Oh, that was good.
Oh, that was fantastic. Yes, that's going to go down in the the blooper reels for sure.
Yep.
Right. So now that we've gone through that, we've witnessed a rage quit on Alan/Ian, whoever he felt like being tonight. How about we move into the main topic? And this evening, we were going to talk about testing your preps for a 24-hour period. So I know this is probably the first time we've ever mentioned on this show that you should maybe test your stuff and make sure your gear works. Make sure you know how your generator works. Make sure you know how different things operate.
You mean they're not going to start when I need them? The first time?
They will if you use them and you know how they work. Yeah,
Depends.
strange, right? Yeah.
Did you do the carb before the snow came?
Or
On the
after.
snow blower? If not, you're in the snow doing it.
No. But we figured we'd talk about maybe testing or running a test for a 24-hour period. Well times are good. So if something does go off the rails, something doesn't really work the way you thought, you can simply flip back to, hey, times are good. Flip the power back on if you're doing a power test. If that carb does bugger up on whatever motorized device you're using, well, now you know, and it's not the end of the world because A, you can have the time to fix it if you have the ability to do that, or B, you have access to a repair shop because times are still good. But at least you're doing a dry run of your preps, and take some time to have panelists kind of, if you've either gone through it yourself already. Maybe some of you have tested your stuff already, or even gone through a scenario where you've had to test your things, and then maybe it wasn't necessarily well times are good, but what went right, what went wrong, and maybe some lessons that we think we could learn from it, and kind of how we can take it and apply it, and even the fun part is even just talking your family into even doing it in the first place, because guaranteed some of them are just going to balk at the idea to begin with and think you're nuts.
My stepson would be in that last category. We had talked about this on the chat, and then I mentioned it to him that night that, yeah, we're going to do this. So I jokingly said to him, that was on Thursday, I jokingly said to him Friday morning that, yeah, we're just going to go downstairs and flip the power off Friday night. And he said, and you're just going to give me a ride to my girlfriend's house so I can be there for the weekend while you do this.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You know what his preps are now.
Yeah. Some to girlfriend's house. Bye.
Yeah. So when it really happens and you can ship him off to his girlfriend's, tell him to start walking, and then you don't have to worry about feeding him. There's more extra food for you.
Yep.
But
or in the real life scenario.
I know 100% he was joking. We've gone camping before, and he's been all up for going and getting the fire going and getting the tents up, the tarps up, and all the rest of that. And I know if we did this more like in the springtime, not in the winter in the bitter cold kind of thing, he would be on board with it. And like you said, Eric, we plan it for June 10th, whatever that weekend is, something like that, that he would be, okay, let's go do this. And he would be serious about, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what should we do? like that stove we were talking about earlier, that, okay, should we buy that and put that in the window? Should we make all this stuff to make sure it works? And he'd be totally up for checking the preps, like testing the gear ahead of time, and okay, let's do this.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good point you brought up there, Brad. If even just looking at the weather currently happening and kind of planning out when you're going to do your test, right now in the midst of winter, maybe not the best time to do like the power test where you're shutting your house down for a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
You might want to move that to a more favorable weather time, just because.
But
on the flip side of that, if you don't want to test it in the winter, I guarantee you your power is going to go off in the winter, and
way more than in the summer. Yeah. So
and you may, I'm not definitely not saying for 24 hours, but you may want to flip it for a couple hours and just do a walk around and do the test and make sure everything works and flip it back. But I mean, that's Murphy's Law, that it's going to happen at the worst time. So
true. Yeah, that's true.
But also, so in his defense, though, like his prep is, I'm going to my girlfriend's. So even if her power is out, you drop them off there, and then you go back knowing all your preps work. So it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
If that's his go-to, when the power goes out, I go to her place. All right. Well, she's out of power. Not my problem. That was your plan, buddy.
Yeah. See, I would know that. I would most likely know that ahead of time, that she's out of power as well, and pull up to the curb and open the door and kick, out you go.
See ya.
I'm out.
Yeah.
So,
but
so I kind of broke mine down a bit. My prep ideas into season, kind of the same idea that Brad was talking about. So for the summer, I said, you know what, if you need to cook or you need to eat, prepare food, barbecue. You're not standing outside minus 20, or just even just have a bonfire. If you've got a fire pit, just do it over the bonfire. You can always, it's not difficult to heat up canned food or something like that if you need something to eat.
Pack of hot dogs on a stick.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Boil water.
Yep.
Your fridges and freezers. Basically your freezer, if it's packed full, it will probably mostly stay frozen. They're usually good for, they say, around 16 to 20 hours. You might lose some stuff around the edges of the freezer that may start to go soft. So just take it out and cook it. But the center should stay frozen. If you don't have a generator or a way to provide power to it. Fridges are a little different. You'll usually get 5 or 6 hours out of a fridge. So if you've got stuff that is in there that may go bad and you don't have a generator, then that's your food. Cook it and eat it. And
or here's another thought too. If you are testing your preps in the middle of the wintertime, outside's a big freezer.
Well, I hadn't got to that. I had this summer and winter, but yeah, you're right.
I just figured I'd throw that out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a generator,
get one.
Depending on where you live, you can always use your vehicle's battery with an inverter. Just put an inverter on it.
Make sure
run your fridge or your freezer for an hour. You run it for an hour, it'll be good for 4 or 5 hours. You won't have to fire it up again. The only thing that may affect some people, and it happened to a friend of mine, and we can discuss that, is have some kind of a backup for your sump pump, especially in the summer. Chances are the power is going to go off in a storm. It's going to be raining, and your sump pump's probably going to be working a little harder. So if you don't have a generator or some kind of a battery backup, you probably should seriously consider getting something. So I'll tell the story. It's what happened to a friend of mine this past, I'm going to say a month and a half ago or so. Our power went out, and I got a phone call saying my backup sump pump isn't working and my basement's starting to flood. So, and this is what we talk about, the preps and everything. And I think I mentioned it. I went down there, took my small inverter generator down there. Second pull, broke the pull cord. So at that point, she's having a bit of a flip. He's like, I'm going to be bailing for the next house. I'm like, no, relax. I'm a prepper. 1 is none and 2 is 1. I'll be back in 10 minutes with my other generator. And I just came home, loaded it up, took it back down, and it runs on propane. So, you know, they kind of say things happen for a reason. I had the propane tank in my truck. It was empty, and just this happened on a Friday night into Saturday. And on Tuesday, I went to Costco to get gas, and I said, I'm already here. I got to fill that tank. Had I not filled that propane tank, I wouldn't have had a generator. So
You'd have been coming to my place to steal my propane.
Hmm?
You would have been coming here to steal my propane. Yeah.
No, don't worry.
Well, you know,
Walmart
you
helped
gotta-
them out with that.
you got to do what you got to do in a pinch. So in the winter, I kind of threw out, it'd be nice to have some sort of a backup heat source, be it a buddy heater, a wood stove, whatever, something like that.
If you're using
somebody on the
either
panel-
or,
Either,
if you're
yep,
using either or, you should have your carbon monoxide around since Ian
Yeah.
/ Alan wasn't here. We got to mention it.
Yes.
exactly.
Even though he rage quit, we'll still mention it.
Now, if somebody on the
Yeah.
panel wants to correct me, I'm not an expert on this, but I'm guessing depending on the temperature, I mean, if it's minus 30 and there's a howling wind chill, that might be a different story. But I'm kind of saying, depending on the temperature, it's unlikely that your house would get cold enough, long enough that your pipes would freeze in 24 hours. They could. If you're concerned about that, you can leave your taps on a drip. If you have municipal water, if you're on a well and you don't have any backup, water backup for pressure, then it is what it is. But
And I mean, I would say that all depends on how good your house is sealed. You know, how good the insulation is. What was the temperature prior to everything going out? If you've got drafts galore and everything and the wind's howling and, 16 of the 20 drafts in your house, it's probably going to cool. And I mean, that's not something I want to test where, to what point, depending on the temperature, do my pipes burst?
Yep.
But it
I'm
something
not interested in that either. I'm just
no. Yeah, no, but it is, right? Like, so, I mean, the 24-hour, depending on your house, like if you've got your house sealed like Fort Knox, I mean, depending on temperature and everything, it'd probably be more. So, I mean, that all relates to whatever, but yeah, it's definitely something you need to keep in mind during the winter for sure.
Yep. There might not even be something bad to check during your 24-hour test of things. Doesn't mean you have to have your heat off for the full 24 hours. Maybe you kick it off for a couple hours just to see what that temperature drop range is in your house. And then obviously you don't want to cause any damage to your house because you're just running a test, right? This isn't a real world scenario at this point, but see kind of where your temperature is dropping, see how fast it drops. And you kind of have an idea of on average what you're going to be losing if you do end up in a situation where the power's out for a significant period of time or whatever other reason you're not able to heat your house.
One of those.
And nope. I was just going to say, as Eric mentioned, if you've got a freezer or something like that, and it's in the winter, just take your stuff out of the freezer and put it outside. If it's minus 20, it's going to stay frozen. You don't need to worry about it. So,
good option depending on if you're well septic or well or municipal or whatever. Find where your main intake feed is into your house. If you're doing a test for 24 hours, kind of jot it down, saying what the temperature is outside, but get one of those infrared thermometers.
Yep.
Okay, fine. You flick the power. Okay, it's about minus 15 out. Your house is at the regular 70, 67 to 72 degrees. Scan the pipe coming into the house. Next day before you flick everything on, scan the pipe. You know what the temperature is. You can kind of guesstimate, according to this temperature, it's only gone down 10 degrees or has it gone down 25 degrees, So, and I mean, those infrared things now are crazy cheap. I'm surprised you can't buy them at the dollar store, but they might not be 100% accurate, but I mean, they'll give you within a few degrees, so that's an easy way in the winter in a controlled environment to just be like, okay, well, this is where my water comes in. What's that pipe temperature when I shut it off compared to when I turn it on? And then you can kind of, you can talk to someone who could be like, okay, well, if it's minus 30, I have less time than 24 hours before it gets to this temperature. And then you can figure out all those extras at that point. But that's an easy way to check your water, because nobody wants busted pipes.
Nope.
No.
So, a couple of things to mention here. Dan in the live chat, I agree with him, and I do the same thing. I have ice packs that I keep in my freezer specifically for that purpose. Also keep a bunch of just regular water bottles. Snap the top open, squeeze a little bit of air out, crank it tight again, throw it back in the bottom of the freezer, put a couple on the sides of the freezer. They'll all start to melt a bit and keep it cooler. Caroline there said freezers in a power outage, wrap them in blankets for better insulation. I would definitely do that in the summertime, especially if your freezer is above grade, to keep it cooler longer. And Jeff, you had said about your friend there with the sump pump, and we were talking earlier about inverters and batteries and whatnot. That there we go. Make sure you size the inverter correctly. Past summer, I got a 3,000 watt Motomaster Eliminator inverter from Canadian Tire. They were on half price, I think it was.
So regular price?
Basically, yeah, the regular price. Not too long ago, during that, not the last little storm we had, but the one before that, we did have the power go out. I have 2 sump pumps. Power came back on, thankfully, but I took one of the sump pumps and ran it through the inverter to a battery that I hooked up in the basement, just in case the power went out while we were out. It would run no problem. And I tested it. It ran it easily 2 times without draining the battery by 1%. And I got the bigger, like 12 volt, like
Deep
large
cycles.
pickup truck, small commercial farm battery.
Yeah.
It was also on sale. So yes, regular price. It's
only going to use the joke once.
I picked up one of those at the same time. I hooked everything up downstairs, and it ran flawlessly, no problem. Just saying, for the startup surge power on the pump, you would want to make sure your inverter is larger than what you need, so you're not going to damage the inverter at all.
Yep. And I actually have exactly that same inverter, and I bought it a few years ago. But yeah, I have the same thing, and I'm just ready to put it on my vehicle battery. If I have to run the truck for half an hour while it's plugged in there, then so be it. But yeah, I did the same thing. I went as the largest size I could. So the 3,000 is pretty handy, and it'll run almost anything.
Oh yeah. Other than
Maybe
the
not
stove
your
and the,
stove, but
yeah. Other than
Well,
the
yeah,
stove
you need
and the
240 for your stove,
dryer,
but
I'm not going
220.
to do that.
Yep.
But yeah. Quick question, Jeff. Have you ever tried putting 2 batteries on that inverter at the same time?
I have not. I can't see why you couldn't if you ran them. Okay, somebody will correct me. It's either parallel or series that keeps the voltage but ups the amp hours.
I'm trying to think of that, and I do this for a living, which is bad. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
So whichever way it is, keeps it at 12 volts instead of makes it 24. I think if you run it in parallel, it stays at 12 and it ups the amp hours.
Yeah.
And
I don't know
you
if
can-
it's series or parallel, but you want to connect the 2 power or the 2 positives and the 2 negatives together.
Yeah, that's
We'll keep it
parallel.
at 12 volts.
There we go.
Yeah.
So that's what you're
Parallel.
Live chat to the rescue. Parallel
Okay.
it is.
Because I was like, I'm thinking, okay, because I got 4 6-volt batteries on some of my machines, but it's hooked up positive to negative, and I'm like, that makes it a 24. So I'm like, I don't know which one, but I'm like, yeah. So you hook up get something to connect the positive and positive together, negative together, and then hook those up, and yeah, you just double your amperage pretty much. But
Think of a remote control car that takes more than 3 AA batteries. If you follow the wiring, that's positive to negative. It follows a series of connections, whereas positive to positive.
I do this for a living, and I didn't
negative to
remember getting a
negative
remote
is
car.
in parallel.
Didn't remind me.
Yeah, you just know how to do it, not necessarily what it's named. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my thing. Also, a quick side thing about batteries. Deep cycle, pretty much they're normally associated with marine or RV. So they have a better
Or
long
ham radio,
lasting,
just
slow
saying.
draw, whatever.
solar.
Depending where you go, you can get pretty decent ones at a fairly decent price. But if you can get deep cycle compared to a regular car battery, you will have more amp hours and more an extra few hours of draw for sure. Yes, they do cost a bit of extra money, but the more expensive, more amps you can get out of it, the more deep cycle they are, way better than buying that little lawnmower one. You know, I only got $80 and that deep cycle one's $200. I'll buy the 81. Hey, it'll get you through something, but it might not last you as long as, you know, budgeting for that $200, $300 battery. Deep cycle is definitely the way to go.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep.
Dan,
so
you got a good question there in the live chat.
Oh.
Looking at the Jackery and other
Yep.
units, still unsure if I should buy that or a generator instead, depending on what you're doing.
Yep.
What's the Jackery?
Little
The Jackery,
battery
it's
box.
like the Eliminator power box that I've
Yep.
got here. Just a different brand. It depends on what they're doing,
Really,
though.
it really depends on your scenario.
Yeah, like
it's,
there's ups and downs for both.
Yep.
The
Yep.
Jackery doesn't cost fuel. You don't have to worry about taking it apart in the winter to get the carb unstuck. But
and
also,
and it's
you're
quiet,
very,
right?
yeah, you're very limited on what you can run on it and
Yeah.
how
Yeah,
long
and
it
you
will
can
run,
run it.
right?
You can
plug-
run the Jackery indoors versus the
Yeah.
generator. You have to go outdoors, and you need fuel for it. But you have
Yeah.
to recharge the Jackery,
Yep.
depending on the
That's-
recharge.
that's
So
just what
buy
I was
a
gonna say
generator
is-
to
is
recharge it. There you go.
The
Or a solar
Jackeries are
panel.
nice, but you're going to have some way to recharge it because it will
Yeah.
it will discharge at some point, and
Yep.
obviously if you're using it, and you're going to have a way to recharge it.
Yeah. So I mean, right? You plug one thing in and it lasts 6 hours, but the second you plug a second thing in, depending on the draw, you might only get 2 hours to run those two. Like, yeah, there's lots. They're all scenario based. That if it's summer and you're going to open up the windows, the Jackery might be better. But in the winter, your generator might be better, so you can run a few other things to keep you warm. Like, I mean, if you can only go for one, me personally, I would go generator.
I agree.
Out of the two, generator is
It's more
Get an
versatile, right?
inverter generator.
yeah, it's more versatile. Yes, there's a bit more maintenance. You got to make sure you've got fuel on hand or whatever. But I was like the utility, depending how you want to go. I mean, I think it's about $12,000 to $1,300. You can get one that runs on propane, gas, and natural gas, depending where you live. Like, you know, and I'm like, you can run a lot more. You can plug a 240 in and backfeed your panel for a few things, you know. So, in my opinion, yes, generator draws a bit more attention. But I mean, if you live in an apartment building, might not be the best scenario for you. But yeah, I personally would go generator just because I don't live in an apartment building and don't ever plan on it.
Been there, done that, not going back.
I've never done it. I don't ever want to go.
Oh, you ain't missing much.
And another question here in the live chat in regards to deep cycle batteries. Do they take the cold better? That's from Lucas.
They handle it a little bit better, but cold's one of the absolute nightmares on battery. They do work better. Obviously, if you've got the room, get good deep cycle batteries. Get them inside the house. They don't take up much room, thankfully. Even if you've got a basement, keep them off concrete is always the best thing for batteries. Always get them off the floor, get air circulation everywhere. Concrete doesn't help with them. But at the same time, when you look at that, get yourself one of those little the battery chargers / stabilizers. And I'm like, just leave it plugged in, you know, every 2-3 weeks, take it out, use your inverter, and that's how you're going to charge all your battery packs and your tablet and your work phone and this phone. Draw the battery down, put it back on the charger, let it recharge up. You know, leaving a battery unused for 2 years fully charged is not good. So
Yeah,
using
you're
it
gonna kill
just as much, using it is, you know, maybe not overly, but like, you know, having a regular schedule to, you know, draw that battery down to nothing and then recharging it letting it charge its full cycle. Hopefully you don't get that power outage while it's charging or whatever. Is one of the best things for it. But with how small one of those deep cycle batteries are, you can easily put that in your cupboard. Keep those little tabs for it so that if something falls on it, nothing starts arcing in the middle of the night. They take up so little room. My recommendation is, if you can, leave them somewhere inside the house with sort of good ventilation in case battery acid leaks out. But I mean, you'll smell it. It smells weird and funny all on its own. But yeah, they do handle the cold a little bit better. But I mean, cold is like the worst thing for a battery, especially if it's not getting used all the time, right? Like your car, use it every 2 days, it starts up no problem. But like, leave your car outside at -30 for a week, and you're gonna have a hard time starting it. It's not much different. It's a little bit better. But the deep cycle, you just get a little bit more storage and a little bit more usable, like the cold cranking amps and the amperage and how long it lasts. So they make the battery a little bit bigger, and you can just store more power. It's still 12 volts, but you get more amperage, or what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, pretty much amperage, right? So you can get more draw out of it for longer. That's why, right? It's good for boats. You know, people sit in the middle of the lake for 4 hours. They use deep cycle batteries because they just store more power. So that's pretty much the only difference between a regular battery and a deep cycle, is they store more power. So they're well worth it. At least look into it and see if it's in your budget. 100%. If you can't afford it right now, buy another one and look to upgrade that one. Then if you got the other one that you can add in or whatever, but deep cycles are definitely the way to go.
And the fact you're mentioning that you should take it off the charger every once in a while and use it is a great reason to pull it off the charger and do your 24-hour test and just see what it will power for that 24-hour period, right? You don't have to do a big, huge mock scenario for this testing your preps thing for 24 hours. It could literally be, how long will this battery last on this certain device or using it on this certain scenario? And that's it. Everything else can be status quo, normal every day. And you're just testing the ability of that battery to do a certain thing for you, and that's it.
Like, I have a work phone. Mel has a phone. You know, Emily Ann has a tablet. I'm like, we've got like 7, 8 battery packs, right? So I mean, they're always, you know, getting rotated so that they get used. But like, yeah, just at one point, just be like, you know, I'm using this battery, and all I'm doing is charging all the devices. You know, my phone at night, Mel's phone, Emily Ann's tablet, your battery backups, you know, your 20,000 milliamps, 30, whatever, you know, keep record and figure out, you know, hey, this charged my phone twice, her phone once, tablet, and 4 battery packs. I'm like, now you can kind of figure out, like, hey, that was pretty good, and then let it charge. And yeah, it'll give you a kind of a scenario of, if you're out of power for a week, I can keep my phone on for a week. No ands, ifs, or buts, right? Good to know.
Yeah, the next 24 hours, I'm not plugging anything mobile into an outlet. I'm running it solely off my backup battery. Let's see how long we can go. Right?
And then just get a small multimeter, or get someone that has a multimeter, you know,
and check. Just watch the draw. Yep.
What is it? You know, I've got 12.67 volts, and after I've charged, you know, 8 devices, I've got 9.67. Well, that's pretty good, right? If you're like, definitely well worth it.
Yeah, and now you know, right? And that's kind of the whole premise behind the testing your stuff for 24-hour period. You don't have to go full bore, power out, kill the water, turn everything off, and, you know, the world's ended scenario. It could simply be, I'm just going to run my devices off the battery for 24 hours. Or if you want to spin it a completely different way and get away from the whole power outage scenario, try to keep a fire going for the next 24 hours. You know, if you got a little fire pit in your backyard, put the fire on and just see if you can keep it going for 24 hours. Because it's trickier than some people would think. You know, you go to sleep for 8 hours at night, that might smolder right out, and then you wake up in the morning, it's out, right? So something else to think of.
Recommend ashwood. Some good hardwood on that.
Yep.
Right, but then you got to learn what wood should I get? What lasts longer, right?
Which what works? What sleep cycle do I have to maintain? When do I have to get up and keep some wood on the fire? Can I leave it sit for a certain period of time?
And depending, you know, for example, like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna stay up for an extra 3 hours. You go to bed. but you're
Right.
getting up in 7 hours.
Yep.
I'm only going to be in bed for 4 hours at that point. Go throw 6 other logs or 3 other logs on there or whatever, right? Like, figure out that schedule if you're happen to be with someone, right?
Yep.
If that's an option, then yeah, like, just set a timer. Wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and throw a fire together. And at 12, you've got all those coals. Just be like, okay, well, I'm going to bed, right? It's noon. Throw all this stuff on, right? You normally sleep 8 hours. Well, by 8 o'clock at night, what's it look like? 10 o'clock at night, what's it look like? Say you sleep in, guesstimate that during daytime where it's not a
Yeah, it's a good
scenario.
reversal of the timing too, where you're still awake, so you're able to watch it and see instead of actually doing the sleep cycle thing. And yeah, that's good too. But gives you a really good idea of how much work it actually takes, how to do it. And then if you do hit that scenario where all of a sudden you have to do that and you have to maintain it, you've done it before. You can say, I've been there, I've done this, I know how to do it. And it kind of takes some of that stress away too. Whereas if you've never done it, and all of a sudden you're sitting thinking to yourself, well, how do I keep this thing going? I've never really done this for a 24-hour period. Well, you can fall back on that experience and just, you've got some base behind you now and you know how to do it.
Yeah.
When we had the ice storm of 98, my parents were out of power for 17 days.
Wow.
No other heat in the house except wood stove. I know my brother had asked my dad at one point, how do you and mom know how long the fire will last overnight if there's no furnace to kick on beforehand?
I wake up cold.
Yep.
Well, no, I know, absolutely.
Yep.
That was in 98. My parents bought that house in 74, and there was a wood stove in it already. I gave them lots of experience and time. They'd lived through lots of different power outages there. All my dad did was knowledge and experience. That's it. He said, you're perfectly fine. Go to bed.
Yep.
That's exactly what it boils down to, is knowledge and experience.
And like you said, like you guys were saying there about the fire, absolutely correct. Do your backyard fire in the middle of the day, get it going hot, put some good wood on it and walk away, put a timer on. How long does that last for?
Mm-hmm.
You're still awake.
Put an hour timer on. Every hour I go check on it, and then between hours
absolutely.
6 and 7, it goes dead.
Yeah. So the wood stove that I have in my house is my house is fairly small, so it's the smaller type of a wood stove designed for obviously for a smaller place. So I'm usually good for 4 to 5 hours, and then I've got to throw another couple of pieces of wood on it. But
4 to 5 hours is pretty good.
Rest your eyes and recharge.
Yep.
Get up, throw a couple more on.
Yep.
Go take a leak and go back to bed for another couple hours.
Yep.
And get up, and then
Get up and do it
keep
again.
going, and then you're still perfectly good.
For sure.
Or you want to take the fire scenario and spin it around, and instead of the whole, how long does it take to light the fire, keep it going, turn the water off in your house and run off of your filtration system. If you're using like a filter of some sort, like a Berkey or whatever it is that you use, run water in the house with that, and just see how much work it actually takes to keep water in that, keep water around for usage for whatever purpose you need, washing dishes, baths, showers, all that kind of stuff, and just get used to that for a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
You learn a lot doing that, right?
Yeah. We all take for granted turning that tap to the left and having hot water, but wanting to do dishes, how long it takes to boil water, whether it be on your barbecue, a stove, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But getting it to the temperature where it doesn't scald your hand, and you've got no ice at this point, and you don't want to waste more of your water that you've had stored up or whatever. But yeah, figure out that on a mild day, I only leave that on barbecue or whatever heat source I'm using with the water, on there for 7 to 9 minutes, or else I got to wait 2 hours for the water cool down for me to do my dishes.
Yep.
Or sponge bathe.
Yep.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. Just all things that nobody really thinks about. And like you said, Pierre, everybody takes it kind of for granted. You turn that tap, the water comes out, So turn it off for a 24-hour period and get used to running it through a filtration system, like a portable system that you may have, or just using
Like a
bottled
Life
water. Like a Life Straw, because Ian's not here. Yep. He rage quit. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's raging even more now.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, just using that for a 24-hour period. It'll get you used to having to source the water, figure out how to use it. If your idea is to use bottled water, you maybe have a couple packages of bottled water in the basement or store it away. Use that for the 24-hour period and just see how well it works or how well it doesn't. Right. And again, if something falls apart, it comes off the tracks and it's not working out, turn the water back on. No harm nor foul. Learn from it and carry on. Right.
Push the pause button, make some notes, and push play.
Yep. Exactly.
And realize that, you know what, bottled water does not work for me. Like, I have 2 giant horses in the house.
Exactly.
I mean, by horses, I mean dogs, right? Like, we have 2 mastiffs. So I mean, like, they're gigantic, and I'm like, so the water they can consume on a hot day is ridiculous. And I'm like, for me to have, bottled water is probably not cost efficient and not good to have that much plastic. But I mean, so we have that 6-gallon Berkey filter system,
right?
But we've always had, we didn't like the water where we are. There's so much, chlorines, whatever, all that stuff. It tastes like you're drinking pool water, that we always bought, bottled water. So I'm like, you pay $10 for the deposit on the bottle, and then we bought the Berkey, and I'm like, well, okay, let's keep buying these. So I'm like, I always have 5 to 7 of those 5 gallons downstairs in my basement. Every few months, take those 5 up, fill up the 5 upstairs, put new lids on them, put them back downstairs. So I'm like, we can probably last for quite a while for water wise.
Yep.
But we also always have our Berkey, and the fancy water dispenser we have is a bottom feed pump one, but it also has like a Keurig on it, which I don't use, but it has a Keurig on it, right? So I'm like,
you're fancy.
So that's all. Yeah, like, it's awesome. Like, you think about it, you want a cup of coffee, bing, bang, boom, you're done. Like, it's done in like 30 seconds, right? But if you lose power because it's a bottom feed, you're not getting any water out of it.
Kevin makes a good point in the live chat there that your dogs will drink from a mud puddle and they'll be fine. They'll drink from a pond. They'll drink.
But I mean, you also have to have a puddle and a pond around.
Yeah, I get it. You don't want to make them do that if you don't have to, but
it's an option.
And I mean, but depending where you live, a mud puddle or a pond may not be an option. If it's middle of summer and it's dry, I don't have a pond in my backyard, right? I don't have puddles around.
If you do, get a Life Straw. Oh, there's 2. Ian's gonna be so mad.
Right? So yeah, I mean, like,
do they
100%,
make them for the
right?
dogs? Like, maybe we can come up with a Life Straw for a dog.
Maybe they do.
Yeah, there you go.
There you
go.
That'd be a neat trick.
That would be right. So I mean, I've got a mini Sawyer. I've got the Berkey system, and all that, which all takes time and effort to put into it, and does take financial burden on some of those things because it's ridiculously crazy. Don't regret the purchase, but initially it's just like, oh my gosh, it's how much. Now I'm like, I'll go thirsty at work if I don't have Berkey water with me. I'm like, I'll be home in like an hour. I'll just wait, right? Like, it is one of those things where you don't think about it, but it's just, so, take into consideration everything in your house. So if you're, if you've got 6 dogs and, 4 cats, like, if you want to be out of power for 2 days, you do need to take them into consideration, right? Okay, fine. You've got a bag of food, but like, what about their water? Say you've got no water, right? And you've got enough water for family members, right? Whether it be you, wife, significant other, and 2 kids, you've only got a gallon of water a day for each, but you didn't take into consideration livestock or, pets in your house. That's something you really need to take into consideration. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, dogs will eat and drink anything, but you'd hate to have to go to the vet and spend $200 because you decided to do a 24-hour test and they decided to drink out of the vet. Unlikely, but I mean, it
could happen
that
though.
it could, like
Yeah,
I said, unlikely, but
Yeah,
I
you should
don't want
definitely
this 24-hour prep to cost.
Yep, and that's a good point too. Is you should put some safety precautions in place for this. So if you get to a certain point, okay, it's quitting time. I didn't maybe get to the 24-hour period during this test, but here's why. Here's what I learned, and here's why I shut it down. And then try again, right?
Yeah,
Figure that out,
gonna say
solve the
make-
problem, and then do it again.
Yep.
And if you know that that's your catch point and your sticking point, well, then maybe do I need to buy another jug of, an 18-liter jug and fill it with water ahead of time or something? And
Do I need a
Yep.
bigger generator, bigger battery, better inverter, more wires?
Yep. There is no better way to figure this out than to
Then
just
to test
test
your
it
preps.
and figure it out while times are good, because you've got that fallback, right? If something goes off the rails, you just flip back to the grid, you flip back to water from wherever you're getting it. It's going to be there, it's going to operate. That fire goes out, it's not the end of the world, and you've learned something.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I do need to mention that Jason in the live chat here, I think, has won the internet this evening.
Oh, I saw that.
He has commented, I traded my carbon monoxide detector for a life straw. Well
Piss off
done.
both.
you win the prize.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh.
you, sir, win the internet this evening because you have equally
do we have
pissed
a
off
crown we
Ian
can give him
and
for
Alan.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the whole point of this episode was to just get everybody kind of thinking about how they can test their equipment, how they can make sure that their preps are kind of where they want them to be, and just don't be afraid to test them, especially while times are good, because now's the time to test it. Because if all of a sudden, 2 weeks from now, there's a massive power outage, or there's
Another ice storm.
an ice storm, or a boil water advisory, or you're not able to utilize your municipal water for whatever reason, or you need to run a fire to cook food for whatever reason happens there, natural gas is out, power is out, whatever. You've done it, you've used it in your area where you're going to be using it, you know how to do it, you've run through the tests, you know where you've fallen down, and hopefully you've come up with a reason or ways to get over those hurdles. And ultimately, you're just going to come out of it a little bit more confident and a little bit more, dare I say, prepared.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
yeah. Any other scenarios that you guys want to run through, or anything else that we haven't touched on yet? Or
Cooking. So
yes.
I've got the fancy one. So
all right, let's
I don't
go.
know. I think I've sent a few pictures. So you got to see our barbecue to start.
All right.
I've got like gas on one side, charcoal on the other, electric smoker on the bottom. So if power goes out, I can't smoke a brisket. But I've got a charcoal on one side. That's that. So I mean, I can cook pretty much anything on that. 2 years ago, I want to say, or whatever, we got this. It was a good deal. It was a fancy way. It's got a 2-burner stove, propane on the top, but it also has an oven that like you can put like a roast in, no problem.
Wasn't that Costco?
Yeah, it was Costco. I think it was like $230. Like it was a smoking deal. I was like, I'm like, yeah, I'll dip into this, like some savings for this. It's a wicked thing. So we had a power outage.
Here?
Yeah, it's propane. Yeah, electric, click, hook everything up. It runs on 1 pound tanks, but I'm like, buy the hose and have a 20-pounder around. It's awesome. Mid supper, we'd lost power, so it was like, okay, we'll put it outside. Everything worked good. We ended up eating supper or whatever. We were in the backyard, and it was the middle of summer, and so plus the generator out to keep everything. But then we always have a bunch of stuff downloaded on all our devices, whether it be entertainment, a show for the daughter, a show for me and Mel to watch when everybody's already in bed. So like we hooked up, like we had a projector on the side of the house, and we're watching like Yellowstone while eating supper that we just cooked outside. So I mean, we were living large at that point. So but the wind 95% of the time always comes the same way at our place. And I'm like, did have a hard time keeping that flame going. So I'm like, the only thing I want to do is like kind of build a little partition wall, I guess you could say, that's easy to take up and down to like
Mhm.
block that. Helps keep the heat regulated, right? If you're trying to cook chicken and there's a constant wind draft going in there. But yeah, that's definitely one of the best $230 we have ever spent. 20-pounder, 2 good tops on top of it. Take it up to our buddy's hunting camp when we borrow his land for whatever. We can cook anything and everything. It's no different than like your actual kitchen. I mean, you won't get a 40-pound turkey in it, but normally it's just me and her going up there, so we can cook a chicken, sit down and have like roasted chicken with like rice and beans on the side, no problem. And it's
Nice.
fantastic. Yeah, it's I can't remember the name of the company. I'll send a picture of it later. We might have already sent one or whatever, but if you can find one of those, I think it's a Camp Chef actually. I think about
Okay,
it. It's a fantastic unit, well worth the money. Has not had any issues with it. But out where we are, we lose power. We don't have a stove because it's electric stove. So I'm like, well, what do? I don't want to start my barbecue to do, I don't want to put my good frying pan on there.
Right.
Or another thing, but I'm like, it's a nice option. Doesn't take up much room, little luggish to carry around, but it's not that big. I mean, we've used it how many times camping, Brad, when we were going up to on the May 2-4 weekends when we were doing whatever. You're on mute.
I would say just about every time we go, we've brought it out.
Yeah.
Because we've got your camper usually, and we're running the outdoor grill, and then that stove as well. And there's usually bread in the oven, and it's fantastic. I'm just looking it up here on Amazon. Sorry, at sale right now, it is $480.
Ooh, that's gone up in price, but
yeah,
if it's available, and it's there, it's a fantastic option. It has not done us any wrong. Just like I said, the only thing is if you're in your deck is specifically facing the wind, you might want to figure out how to block that wind without getting a backdraft over it. Just so it doesn't take 6 hours to cook a chicken because the temperature won't get up there. But yeah, and then for us, I mean, we have 2 horses in the house, so I mean, if the power went out in the middle of winter, we've got a spot we can block, try and keep warm. But getting your pets involved to keep you warm is a fantastic option.
Oh, 100%. Jason's got a good point in the live chat as well in regards to your pots and pans. Check them out. Do they have plastic handles? If they do, you're not putting those on the open fire, and you're certainly not putting them in the barbecue because you'll have no handles left.
So I have a cast iron skillet, and I have kind of a stock pot, I guess you would say, a bigger cook pot, and it's just got a couple of metal handles on it. You just need some pot holders so you don't burn your hands.
Gloves.
But
yeah, but I mean, if you've got that weird, crazy, fancy set that this influencer told you should buy, but then you put it on your barbecue, and next thing you know, it's melted, right? Like, it'd be nice to know now where you're like, oh, okay, that was a horrible idea, and yes, it sucks. You have to go buy new pots and pans, but better to know now than when everything is stopped and you can't find a pot and pan or a propane tank or a liter of gas to save you. But finding cast iron at local thrift stores, just even if they're rusty, buy them, YouTube it. They're not that hard to clean up and recure.
Yep. If you want to experience trying to find a propane tank in bad times, just go to Walmart.
What do you mean during the bad times? That was the best time.
I had no problem.
And see, that's exactly it. No, I mean, like during bad times, it was a good simulation for probably over 20. That was almost a 48-hour exercise, maybe 72 hours for us in our little group chat there of trying to find propane tanks at Walmart. It's fantastic.
I just kept waiting for better Andrew to He was the last one that had anything on order, and when he's posted there that, and his is canceled too. That okay. Screw it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm done. I was like, I'm done.
Yep.
Four orders at 4 different stores I put in trying to get those.
Oh, that one's going down with the can openers.
So also, if you've got a generator, if you don't have one of those fancy hookups where you just plug it into the side of your house and you've got extension cords, or the one that you plug into your meter, making sure you've got adequate extension cords for where your freezer is. So if your freezer is at the complete opposite end of your house, make sure you have 150-foot extension cord to make it to that. But having them wrapped up, stored away, easy access, good to go. You know where they are. I plug these two in and it will make it to my freezer.
Yeah.
Is always a good option.
And then try to run your freezer or your fridge for that 24-hour period on the generator and just see how it goes.
Yeah.
Right.
See how much fuel it takes.
How much fuel it takes. Make sure that cable actually runs to where it's got to get to. Figure out if it actually will power it
correctly.
Yep. Exactly.
And you can do some, like you say in the good times, do some testing with your timing. Like I've said it before, your generator does not have to run 24/7.
No.
Once you get your fridge cold and your freezer cold, it'll last for hours. Run it for an hour and a half, shut it off for, say 4 hours. Check your fridge, see if your fridge is still cold. Know how much time you've got between having to plug it back in again, so that you're not burning fuel literally, to be honest, for nothing. And then when you desperately need that fuel because the power outage has gone much longer than you thought, you've run out.
And you're also putting wear and tear on that generator too, right? And when
they're not designed to run like a Generac, those home generators. They're designed to run 24/7. Those portable ones are not.
Even the Generac say after 24, you got to turn them off for a period of time.
You could time it right that the power went out, you plugged your generator in, you kept things cold for a little bit, turn your generator off. Your fridge is good for, like you said, Jeff, maybe 5 hours. Okay, well, at the end of the 5-hour mark, open the fridge, take out what you need to be cooking, start your generator, plug your small single burner stovetop hot plate thingies into, get your freezer running, get some lights on, run the bathroom pumps, run the sump pumps, all of that at the same time, as long as your generator can handle it. Do all of that cooking, cleaning, showering, charging of stuff, running all your systems. Everything's cooked, everybody's clean, everybody's fed, shut it down.
And in that hour while you've got it running, like you say, Brad, if you take that hour while it's running, charge your phone, charge your tablets, your laptop, whatever. For me, the last time the power went out, I plugged my Wi-Fi router in, and I was able to access the internet and just make sure that the world wasn't imploding and it was just a power outage for me. And so,
I had to make sure you didn't have to run up here and steal my stuff, right?
Oh, I was already halfway there, but
I figured as much.
That and just on that note, make sure you've got some way of communication and some information gathering devices. Like Eric, I bought that radio from you, that wind up solar battery powered radio, and I tested it out. Works great. It's sitting in my shed. I know exactly where it is. I think I've had it for a couple of months, and I know. So I'm going to say about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was out there and I went to turn on my other little battery powered Bluetooth radio. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I pulled yours out, cranked it up a bunch of times, pulled up the antenna, put it on the radio station, and let it run dry. Let it run dead. Cranked it up again 2 or 3 times. End of the day, I cranked it for about 15 minutes. I put it up on the shelf, put it away. It's charged and ready to go if I need it.
Perfect.
But also,
and Kevin makes a good point in the live chat too. Pierre talked about running the extension cords. If you're running extension cords, make sure that they're sufficient for the load, and and understand that the longer your extension cord is, you're going to lose.
Line
You're going to
loss.
lose some voltage. There's going to be some line loss. So
So I can't
you know,
just plug in like 15 from the dollar store and like everything will be good.
well, you can if you
You
want. Take your
can.
chances.
No, but if
Make
you-
sure
if
your
you-
carbon monoxide alarm works.
If
It
you do that,
depends.
Jared,
What kind of scenario are you looking to run?
How quick
If
the
you
fire
do that,
department
Jared,
can
you
get
can
And
here.
how realistic do you want this scenario to be?
But yeah, also quick thing about fridges, freezers, whatever. How indecisive are people in your house that just open up the fridge and stand there for
Yes.
45 seconds? Be like,
Mhm.
I guess I'll grab this. If the power's out, that's
you ain't doing
that
that.
4 to 5 hours that your fridge is good. You open up your fridge for 5 minutes. That's gone down
You're done.
drastically.
Yep.
Yep, you're
So
done.
maybe right when the power goes out, okay, go in. I know cheese can sit on the counter for 5-6 hours. Your apples, your strawberries, your blueberries, maybe not the milk, but a bunch of produce. Like, okay, open up the fridge, take all this out, put it on the counter, and then whether it be you, significant other, your kids, there's snacks on the counter. Your fridge is now good for 4 hours because you opened it up and took whatever out.
Yep.
Is definitely a thing compared to waiting, them doing that while you're in the washroom or outside doing your thing, and they left the fridge door open for a half hour while you were doing whatever, and now your produce has gone way past that point of whatever. But yeah,
Yep.
definitely opening, closing your fridge is by far one of the worst things you can do during a powder outage. So maybe, power went out. Do we do that now? Do we wait the 5-10 minutes? Depending where
Take
you
out
live.
what you want and put a padlock on it.
Yeah, like take out pepperettes. Take out your cheese strings. This, that, something you can make a sandwich with. Stuff that's good. You might be able to throw it on the deck, specifically if it's in the winter, right? Like, take it in and
Well,
out, leave it in your garage.
Jason makes a good comment in the live chat there. Put your frozen meat in the fridge that you intend to eat when it thaws, and it'll keep the fridge colder longer. You're not wasting it. You're going to eat it anyways. It's going to be, you've already planned to have that for supper. So yeah, it's frozen. Take it out, throw it in the fridge. Good idea. Excellent.
Right. Like, I have a non-heated garage. So I've got the nice thing that I'm like, I just open up the door and it gets as cool. I have a freezer out there. So my freezer out there would probably last longer, but take some of those things out of your fridge, leave the garage door closed. Oh, you want a sandwich? No problem. You can go to the garage and make the sandwich in the garage. It probably lasts longer, but yeah, just one of those things that if you're like, okay, I'm going to do, the water stuff, and you're going to be busy for a half hour, 45 minutes. Someone else is going to be busy for an hour and a half. Your kids are standing at the fridge for 40 minutes with it open, being like, well, I don't know what I want to eat. Like that will.
Now you're going to eat all of it because you just
right.
it all.
So that can really, if you've got that hard line where you're like, I'm not starting my generator for 6 hours, right? But 5 hours of it, everything was already past that point, which most of it would probably be good, but it could ruin some of your stuff or whatever. So even having your kids understand that, all that would be a good thing. And I don't remember what I was just thinking.
And I was going to say, not even during this outage do you tell your kids not to. Anytime you should tell your kids, don't stand there with that because it's going to.
Agreed. But you're normally in the kitchen where they understand that.
So,
but the power's gone out and you're not around. So they're not distracted by the TV. Right? So that's their only entertainment. And they're trying to figure out why the light doesn't turn on.
It's true.
Open, close. Open,
it is.
Right.
Open, close.
Yeah.
What?
Something's different.
Two quick things. Both our bathrooms and our hallway in the main areas have those little plug into the wall. Power goes out, there's a light. So if you're in the bathroom, it's not completely dark and you got to clean up a mess afterwards, depending if you stand. So there's that. And the other one is we always have a few battery packs always in the house, but getting one of those halo lights. So they're actually available at the dollar store for like $4 or whatever. They don't have a stand or whatever.
$4.50.
Yeah, okay, $4.50. But they're small, USB, plug it into a 10,000 milliamp, have it in that common area. You're gonna have everything. That thing will put out a lot of light. compared to having a flashlight, using your phone flashlight. You can't find your flashlights, have them pre-set up with certain areas, and they run off battery packs. They are a lifesaver. I mean, I've got 2 of them that they stand a little bit taller than those, but I'm like, they run off battery packs for hours and they light up very well. Dollar store,
and
even if it only lasts one time, your power goes out, it's well worth the $4.
well, somebody else mentioned, which I had never thought of. You can buy those mini outdoor solar lights, like people have them line their driveway. So yeah, you have it outside all the time. It charges in the sunlight. Bring it in at night. They'll run for 5, 6, 7 hours. You've got light for the night.
Yeah, we've got them around the backyard or whatever for when the dogs go out or whatever, and we had them on the front deck, and the front deck was just changed, so we're kind of hesitant on putting a screw through it. So I'm like, we just haven't zip tied them. And like, middle of the night, you go fill up your water, and the light turns on. It scares you. But I'm like, they've been in the house for I don't know how long, and I'm like, they still motion activated. They've got a constant on button, but yeah, it's well worth it. Compared to having to run your phone or, by candlelight. I mean, candlelight's all more romantic and everything, but you can't see anything past 2 feet with that. Like they're useless, right? Like for that. But yeah, and Brad, do you remember what that thing is that we had the candles in when we had power loss? You remember what it's called?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay.
Candle holder. Candle holder.
No. So it's a pot, but the way it's designed, it's got an opening. You shove a bunch of candles in, and it pumps heat out the top.
Oh.
It's like a Mexican name or something to it.
Are we allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Okay, well, South Africa, South American theme or something.
Yeah, no,
to
it's.
it, but...
And I hate to not actually remember what it's called.
Gasifier.
No,
Gasifier.
No, but
you're welcome, Scott.
In an hour and 16 minutes.
Yeah. No, but it's just I don't know. I'll send the picture to Brad, and Brad will post it on the Discord. Because or it's something, right? But it's just you put some candles in there, and the way it's designed, it pumps heat out the top. So you put it kind of somewhere low, and it does give out some heat. I mean, it probably not as good as a wood burning stove or whatever, but I'm like, it does produce quite a bit of heat. I know they're available on different places. If you're into making clay stuff, you can probably make your own. But we had one here. We lost power. I'm like, we threw a bunch of candles in it, and I'm like, you put your hand on the top, and I'm like, that's getting pretty hot up there. Like your hand was warm.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically you have a base and some way to hold the pot up. You just turn a clay pot upside down, put it on there, and that's your heat.
Oh well, this one's like this giant clay base.
Jeff, you're thinking of something different, but I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah.
This is a whole lot better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could put like 6, 7 regular like tall candles in this thing. Like it's huge.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested to have a look at that.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know they're not crazy cheap. I think because we looked them up once someone said what the name was. And we looked them up, and I'm like, they're a little pricey depending where you go. But I'm like, it kind of just worked out that we had one, and I'm like, hey, it works. So I'm like, if funds are available and everything, like it is an option for sure. I just can't remember the name, and I wish I knew how to Google what's in my mind, but I haven't installed that chip yet.
It's called a keyboard in Google. Do I have
Brad?
an episode for you?
Yeah, I know. That's why. I think she sent the picture on the chat. Yeah, but I mean, we're talking. That was like 2-3 weeks ago. So I mean, that chat can get crazy.
Yes, it can. especially when we're trying to find propane tanks.
Yeah, right. So if I'm not mistaken, that was even before that whole propane
problem.
Nope.
This was all before the propane thing too, if I'm not mistaken, right? So
it was.
But if people are curious, we'll make sure to get it in the Discord. I put the link up in the live chat here for listeners, and I'll get it in the show notes as well, so you can hop in the Discord chat there, and we'll get the info out there. because we could spin here for hours trying to find the name.
Yes, I will. I apologize.
Got it.
Yeah,
Oh, that's okay.
I
Oh,
hear it.
oh,
Chimeneas.
go for it.
Huh?
Chimeneas. Chimeneas. Chimeneas.
Chimeneas.
Chimeneas.
Okay,
There we
I
go.
know exactly what
Go.
they are. I've seen tons of them outside, usually at
Yes.
people's backyards,
Mhm.
where you're
Yep.
a lot of municipalities and cities and that
Yep.
require you to have a chimney where you can't burn just in a fire pit. You have to have it enclosed. So
Yeah, but yeah, you can bring that inside and put candles in it.
As
Sure,
long
if
as
you
you
want
have
to.
a carbon monoxide detector nearby.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Alan would be proud of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're trying to
So-
lure him back after his rage quit.
It may take a few weeks.
I think it's going to take a couple weeks to come down from that one. Yeah.
But yeah, the
Oh.
chimney. Yeah, so that is an option. I mean, figure out how to make it out of clay. I mean, that might work out. And
Yep.
with how much these things are cost, it's worth looking into. And then you can start selling them for like $80 cheaper, buddy. You're making cash like there's no tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Yeah, they're pretty expensive.
yeah, yeah, they are. They're not that crazy cheap. So I hate saying it, but I mean, we had one and we tried it out, and I'm like, it's giving off some heat in the living room. So I'm like, it works. So if people want to know that it works, yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Anybody have anything else 24-hour prep wise to throw out there? Or?
I had just some stuff to stock up on.
Go for it.
Boredom games. Alan
Mhm.
has said this before as well, that keep your mind busy. You know, card games, board games, darts.
Yeah, but I got TikTok on my phone. Why do I need that?
You don't. You're fine.
You just keep staring at that blank screen and
Do I have an episode for you?
I don't have TikTok, buddy. Don't worry.
Not anymore. You don't.
Craft stuff, coloring pencils, markers, modeling clay,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. Keep yourself busy. Even for parents, sit down with your kids.
Yeah.
Keeps you both occupied for a while, takes your mind off of what the situation is you're going through. Activities for everyone to do as a family, depending on how long you're going to be out for. And even if you're just running a test, get them to help you with an activity like collecting water, collecting firewood, going to check on neighbors. Gets their confidence up to go and do it in an actual situation. They get them to be situational aware of what's going on around them. Why not?
Yeah.
What else did I have here? We were saying before, if this happens in the wintertime, bring out your cold weather gear, your winter gear, whatnot. You might be sleeping in that. Make sure you're comfy. If not, get some extra stuff. Go to a thrift store, buy some extra blankets. Make yourself warm. We talked on it before. Auxiliary comms and information systems. Was it last week we had the deal of the week? Was the battery from Cabela's, or 2 weeks ago, or maybe even 3 weeks ago by now?
A little while ago, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get that one that they had on the we had on the deal of the week. I missed it. I'm stupid. Sorry. I went and got a different one, and it's on its way here specifically for that purpose, to build, like you would build, Eric, a battery powered radio box.
Yep.
With that in mind. So yeah, I can still reach out and touch someone and hopefully get some information back from somebody outside of my area should this happen.
If you're going to
And
reach
in
out
this-
and touch, just to throw it out there, if you're going to reach out and touch someone, make sure you have their permission first.
Yeah, with consent.
Yeah,
With consent.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
So I could not leave that one alone.
I don't mean either. I was like, with consent.
We had touched on it earlier. The extra propane tanks, which don't ever go to Walmart for cooking and heating, and the power for backup sump pumps if needed, like we had said already, and make sure you have plenty of can openers.
Yeah, very nice.
And know how to use them, because if you only have the electric one,
Yeah,
and you're gonna be pissed. You're gonna be pissed if you try and cook those baked beans with a sealed can.
And you go to start your generator, and the rope pulls off. Yep.
You're in even more trouble. Yeah.
I like what Freya says there in the live chat. Do
What do
a
we got?
24-hour car camping challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find a
At that
farmer's
point,
field,
just bring
get
2
permission
jerry
to
cans
be
and leave the
there.
car on.
Yeah.
Huh? Find a farmer's field and make
Yep.
sure you got permission to be there and go camp for the weekend. That's the only thing you can do. Throw the keys away.
Or even just in your own driveway.
Well, make it a
Something
little
goes-
bit more realistic.
Something goes sideways, at least you can go in the house.
Well,
You've never been locked out?
Right.
call Ala. I'll get you in.
Yeah. No, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, trying it out. What can you fit in a car and accommodate with who you are? There's a scenario
Yep.
where you need to leave your house and you were only able to grab this. Like, yeah, can you live 24 hours?
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
That is
Practice
really
in the summer before winter is my
Yep.
recommendation. But, yeah, worth it.
label
Very good.
your bins according.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to grab the summer bin in the wintertime.
Or the winter one in the summertime.
Well, yeah, that's true too. But yeah.
No, awesome. That's we've gotten all kinds of good information across, I think, and gotten hopefully some people to start thinking about different ways they can run a simple test or as complicated of a test that they want for a 24-hour period. And just 190 episodes in, and we have finally mentioned test your gear. Come
Sweet.
a long
Somebody made
way.
a note of that, right?
Yeah, I think we've come a long way.
Okay, so also just to clarify, this episode was my idea. So I mean,
It was.
it only
Yep.
So
Yep.
I've only been on for how many episodes? And I came up with it. Like, what have you guys been doing for 100 and how many episodes?
So thanks for coming out, Pierre. This will be the last time that we see you on the show.
Yeah, probably.
Yes,
But
no,
yeah.
it was your suggestion.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
because
good.
with the weather and everything, we had an ice storm. Thankfully, we didn't lose power. But I was just like,
Nope.
25 years ago was the ice storm of '98, which hit
Yep.
Eastern Ontario really bad, and I was like, hey, that might not be a thing to like test it out, make a test scenario, and try your stuff out. It'd be a lot better than trying to figure it out when you have no other options.
Yeah, so hopefully we've hopefully we've kind of sparked some ideas in some people's minds. Hopefully we can maybe come up with some ways to test your gear, to test some different various scenarios that maybe you haven't thought of before. Maybe you have, but don't be afraid to start out small. Do a small little thing like we mentioned. Just power your mobile devices off of a battery for 24 hours and see how that goes for you. Test the fire out. Go run, turn the water off in the house, turn the power off, like little things like that. Live out of your car for 24 hours. All kinds of little things like that. Just see what it's like. And you've always got that safety net of this is a test. I'm only checking to see how things go. If it goes sideways on you or everything falls off the tracks, guess what? Things are still normal. No problem. You just stop the test, reevaluate, check out what happened, what went wrong, what went right. Try it again. And no harm, no foul, because you've got that safety net of everything is normal and it's good times right now anyways. So no big deal at all.
Yep.
So hopefully let's help a few people out. And we'll move into the podcast challenge. So for episode 190, very simple, test your gear. Put that 24-hour scenario into place and do something. Run your stuff off a battery. Keep that fire going for 24 hours. Whatever scenario it is you want to test, start out as small as you want, go as big as you want. It doesn't really matter. And flip us an email to feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Let us know what you did. Let us know what you tested. And let us know what went well and what didn't. And then we'll discuss it on the show. And we talk it out, tabletop it, and get information out to others.
And if the 24 hours was way too easy for you, I challenge you to do 2 days. And then
There you
3.
go.
Once you get comfortable with the 1 day, plan it, make a whole weekend of it.
Perfect.
Try it
Or
out.
if 24 is too daunting, make it 12.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing says you have to do 24. We just chose 24 for the episode because it's a pretty standard number to work with.
Yeah. But yeah, just try it out and go from there. And when you get it down packed, keep going.
Yep. All right. Anybody have any upcoming events they want to talk about?
Tomorrow's Monday.
Perfect.
Beginning of the work week.
Radio Amateurs of Canada is still doing their ham radio basic class coming up in the spring. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, head over to rac.ca and check it out. It's $50 for the class. Probably it's around $50 for the book as well. So you're about $100 total in for it, and it runs for a couple of months. And just a reminder, if you miss a couple classes, they do send out the recorded classes afterwards, so you can catch up pretty easily. So check that out if you're looking for your ham radio license, and then you can nerd out with certain panelists, possibly myself. Jeff,
I mean,
you got a weather
the background doesn't give it away.
No.
Not at all. Nope. Yeah, so it's certainly been an interesting, I'm going to say 6 weeks, couple months, at least in my area. For the most part, winter's been non-existent. We got one, that kind of blizzard that a lot of people got, and outside of that, we really have not had anything. There's grass in areas. So I mean, don't get me wrong. There are spots in Canada that are cold and have been cold and have had their more or less normal winter, but a considerable part of it has not. Is this the wave of the future with global warming? I can't say. I'm not saying global warming isn't a thing. It certainly is. We'll just have to wait and see where it goes. But for anybody who enjoys the outdoor sports and outdoor things in the winter, it's really been testing. The local cross-country ski places and open. Some of the actual ski resorts were limiting which runs were open. They just didn't have enough snow on them. They need -3 before they can start making snow. So it's certainly been interesting, and the 14-day extended forecast isn't looking that great either. So we'll have to see what happens. Down in the U.S., especially the western, southwestern United States, specifically California area, that atmospheric river that I brought up at the last podcast certainly has been there, and it is continuing to be there. It's been going on. I think they're on wave 3 right now, and they're probably going to get a couple more waves. For the first time in a very long time, there are no more extreme drought conditions within the state of California. There's still a lot of significant drought, but no more extreme drought. Up in the, we'll have to see down the road what that does for, the reservoirs and that kind of stuff. The heavy snow that's been hammering the Sierra Nevadas bodes well for replenishing some of that area. They provide Lake Mead, Lake Powell. They're saying right now that the snowpack is at 140% of mean average. And there's still, as I say, 2 or 3 more waves of this atmospheric river to come. So we'll have to see what that means. By no means will it return things to normal, but the hope is that it will stop the decline, which would be a good thing. And we'll have to see where things go there. I've thrown a couple of links in there for just some media notes if anybody wants to have a read of it. But outside of that, we're, at least in my area, we're waiting for winter.
Hopefully it arrives soon.
Same here.
I know a lot of people don't like it. I do, to each their own, but I know talking to a couple of farmers where we run our snowmobile trails through, they're panicking already because there's no snow. And they say, come spring, if there's no snow to melt to get moisture into the ground, we're already starting way behind the 8 ball, trying to get our crops in and stuff like that. So it's more than just, snow for us to go out and have fun outside. It has a big bearing on food crops and stuff too. So
imagine the price of lettuce next spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to think about that.
No.
That's
But
why you're
speaking
gonna
of
have.
that-
That's why everybody's gonna have their own garden in the spring.
You got it.
Thankfully we don't have to register it.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah, you beat me,
Yeah,
Eric.
yeah, I know.
Not
Yeah,
yet.
I know.
All right. How about we move in the deal of the week? I don't know who tossed this one in the notes, but if you want to run with it. Anybody?
I think it was
I know-
Alan.
I think,
I- yeah, I think it was
Oh, then you rage quit and left us hanging. So
But it had
I'll
to
run.
be Alan because it makes mention of a CO alarm in it. So
Well, I
it
figured
had to
somebody
be
maybe
him.
just added that to, stir the
Maybe.
pot a little bit. But so Princess Auto has a wood burning camp stove on sale. So it's $50 off at Princess Auto. And since Alan put this in, of course, he put his typical safety warning in here in brackets of don't forget a battery powered CO alarm if you're burning wood inside the house. So,
And we were all discussing prior to the episode about, I have one because it was on sale a year or so ago when I bought it, and we haven't done it, but we're looking at how we can make a spot in that common area that if everything happens, this is where we're going to do it, vent it out properly and all that. So, it would be something to look into for anybody, for sure.
I'm pretty sure they do sell extra pipe lengths
Oh,
for it.
you
so.
can buy that pipe almost anywhere, right? Depending on the size. Like, yeah, you go in somewhere and say, I need more 2-inch pipe, 3-inch pipe, 4-inch pipe, whatever it comes with, and you can get that at pretty much anywhere. So that's
I
the
would
nice
be
thing.
careful where you go in and say that.
Like, just you know what? It just tack it onto your order with your propane tanks. It'll be all right.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Anyone got any shout outs? All right. Email inbox is dry. Reviews for the podcast as well, dry this week. So nothing there. So with that, I'll bring episode 190 of the Canadian Prepper Podcast to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out, submit a review. It does help other people find us.
And we do record these shows live on Facebook and YouTube. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, Canadian Prepper Podcast, and click the notifications tab. That gives you an alert when we're going live. You can contact me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca, or I'm frequently on the Discord.
And if anybody wants to reach out to batbradcpp@gmail.com is a way to reach me.
You can find me off the wall customizing. I think we're on the Tickety Talk, Instagrams, a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not on it often, but I am on the Discord for the CPP. Or you can find me Monday nights where I talk about my critique of the government on the Canadian Patriot podcast on YouTube's on Monday nights.
All right. If anybody wants to check in on Alan and make sure that he's all right, I have texted him. I think he's calmed down a little bit, but you can fire him an email at Alan. That's Alan with one L at prepperpodcast.ca. Let him know what you think about his rage quit. Maybe mention CO a few times for him or something, or just call him Ian if you want. You can also check out Rapid Survival at rapidsurvival.com. Get me there on the live chat, or you can flip me an email at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.